Let's reflect on two young, highly defensemen on the Devils roster, Shimo Nemec and Seamus Casey. Let's assess their 2024-2025 seasons and where do their games go from here. We have a lot to break down in today's episode of Locked On Devils. Buckle up, everybody.
You're Locked On Devils, your daily podcast on the New Jersey Devils, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, this is Bryce Salvador, and you're Locked On Devils with Trey Matthews.
Scores! Oh, Steven stepped up, nailed it. Brodor's got the puck. What a shot. The Devils win the Stanley Cup.
Alrighty now, what is up, New Jersey? Welcome back to the Locked On Devils podcast here at the Locked On Network. I'm your host, college hockey play announcer, Devils Wire Pucks Pitchforks, and also part-time Credential Me member, Trey Matthews. Throughout the week, I've been posting soundbites from development camp. I hope you guys have been enjoying that. But for today's episode, I felt as though now is a good time to talk about two young players on the Devils roster that have already appeared in a decent amount of NHL games. And those two players are Shimo Nemec and Seamus Casey. So in the first segment, we will focus on Shimo Nemec's 2024-2025 season. Then in the second segment, we'll talk about Seamus Casey. And then to close out today's episode, I will assess both of their futures because I think throughout the regular season, people were debating who should stay on the Devils roster long-term or who should be utilized in a trade. Shimo Nemec or Seamus Casey. Who takes priority over the other? And both of them had their moments throughout the season. You will also hear from both players throughout the course of the episode. Let's kick things off with Shimo Nemec. We're going to focus on three categories: his regular season, the playoffs, and also his stats in the AHL. This season, Nemec appeared in 27 games for the Devils. He had 2 goals, 2 assists for a grand total of 4 points. He had a plus-minus rating of -10. He blocked 27 shots. He had 24 giveaways, and he had an expected goals for rating of 11.5. Not really all that impressive, but what was impressive was his performance during the playoffs and also in the AHL. Zoning in on his stats with the Utica Comets, he appeared in 34 games. He had 5 goals, 18 assists for a grand total of 23 points, and he had a plus-minus rating of +7. Now, here's where Nemec really started to win back a lot of the fan base. During the playoffs, he appeared in 4 games. He had 1 goal, which was the game-winning goal in double overtime in Game 3, which prevented the Devils going down 3-0. He had 1 assist for a grand total of 2 points. Also worth mentioning, throughout the playoffs, Nemec was the only defenseman to score a goal for the Devils. And arguably, it was the biggest goal in that series. So Nemec really elevated his game when it mattered most because the Devils were dealing with so many injuries. They were dropping like flies. They needed a few players to take their games to the next level. And we always say that the playoffs, it creates heroes. We saw it a couple seasons ago with Akira Schmid, Andre Palat, Eric Haula. This time around, the main talking point was Shimo Nemec. We had the chance to talk to Nemec during exit interviews, and during his availability, everybody asked, including me, how would he assess his season both in the NHL and AHL, and how would he like to see his game develop? Here's what he had to say.
Nemo, obviously, I'm sure you're really happy with the way the season ended up for you, just the confidence you found and all that. You really specifically talked about that the other day. What for you was the big change towards the end of the year that you felt that confidence come back and the way you were able to contribute?
I don't really know. I just wanted to play my game, and I had nothing to lose, so I just wanted to play my game, like play with the confidence, and you'll see what happens. So yeah, I think obviously like good games for me, but like we still lost, so I think it doesn't count.
One of the things after the end of after the end of Game 5, Sheldon said, if it wasn't for Nemo, we would have been swept. Just the way you came in with that point. What does it mean to you at this point to hear that from your head coach?
Yeah, I mean, it means a lot for me because after that frustrating season, like this scores after the season, they're pretty good for me, and it's it's good. Like I'm positive now, and I'm motivated to do some work in the summer. So yeah, good thing.
Was there a moment for you on or off the ice where you felt that change in your mind of like, I have this regained confidence now and I'm gonna have an improved game on the ice?
Yeah, I felt like last 3 games in the regular season, I felt really good on the ice, and then like in playoffs, I just feel good. I feel like I'm playoff guy, and I know turn that mindset in the playoffs. So yeah, I just felt really good on the ice, and played with confidence. So it's good for me.
This season, you were also an AHL All-Star. Did that experience and help you out a little bit in terms of growing your game?
Yeah, like I would be like more here all season than NHL All-Star, but yeah, it's something what I didn't expect that before the season, but now that season overall helped me with my mentally, and like I'm mentally stronger than I was before, so it's something good in this season is mental, I think.
A lot of people also debate, was Nemec worth the second overall pick? Because right below him were players like Shane Wright, Logan Cooley. I think that's a debate for another time, but Nemec moves the puck extremely well. He has high-end hockey sense and plays with excellent pace. He is dangerous in transition thanks to his speed and skill, and that skating ability and hockey sense help make him a solid defender. He'll need to add some more strength, but all the tools for success are there. He's a talented all-around defenseman with huge upside. Yes, I guess you can make the argument that he took a step backwards compared to his rookie season, but that year he had a much bigger role because, once again, the Devils were dealing with injuries. You can say whatever you want to say about Nemec, but here's something that I wholeheartedly believe in. He is an all-around defenseman, and I think he is heading in the right direction. And I was really impressed with his playoff performance. I know he wasn't all that thrilled to be in the AHL, but like I said, sometimes circumstances don't fall into your favor. This is where politics comes into play. But regular season, not good. Playoffs, really good. And Nemec sort of won me back because if you would have asked me smack dab in the middle of the regular season, I would have said, I'm perfectly content moving on from Nemec. That's not to say he was a bad player, but if the Devils really want to go big game hunting, if they want to get a big asset onto their roster that can make an impact right away, maybe you should include Nemec in a trade package and see what you could get in the market. But after the playoffs, I'm not so sure anymore. He's won me back, and I'm starting to see that potential leak through. I think he took huge strides forward compared from the regular season to the playoffs, and I think he can only go up from here. Now, he's entering the final year of his entry-level contract, and we'll definitely talk more about it a little later in the episode because I mentioned the politics of this business, and you do have to keep in mind that there are a lot of players in front of Nemec and also Casey that take priority. So what was once an easy debate, Nemec or Casey, has now turned into a head scratcher. Like, who do you see more potential in? Who has the capabilities to really take their games to the next level and be an impactful player for the Devils down the road? I know Nemec probably had bigger expectations on himself, but he did suffer an injury shortly before the season started. I think that put him behind schedule a little bit. Took him a while to get up to speed, but here he is, and I think he still has a lot left to prove. And whether or not the Devils decide to hold on to him, we're just going to have to see how it unfolds. But I'll just say this, and I know I'm repeating myself, Nemec won me back after what he did in the playoffs. All right, we're going to talk about Seamus Casey momentarily, but before we continue, let me tell you guys about Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So, in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. What was one surprising thing that I noticed when I started tracking my spending with Monarch? Just how much I was spending on takeout. Now that I have Monarch, I've cut back on that a little bit. Not only am I healthier, but my wallet is also healthier, which I think is more important. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Okay, let's talk about Seamus Casey. We talked about the second overall pick a few years ago for the Devils, but let's talk about a second round pick back in 2022. Similar to Nemec, we'll look at a few categories for Casey, his NHL stats and also his AHL stats. He only appeared in one playoff game for the Devils, and that was the elimination game, Game 5 in Raleigh. This season for Casey, he appeared in 14 games. He had 4 goals, 4 assists for a grand total of 8 points. He netted himself 2 power play goals. He had 1 power play assist, giving him 3 points on the man advantage. So half of his goals came on the power play, and almost half of his points total also came on the power play. He had 16 giveaways, which, let's go back to Nemec. Nemec had 24 in 27 games played. Casey, 16 in 14 games played. That makes me ponder a little bit, but Nemec has been in the league a lot longer than Casey, so I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But due to Casey's size and sometimes lack of defensive abilities, it was easy for Sheldon Keefe to bench him whenever he did play. He averaged just under 13 minutes of ice time. While with the Comets, Casey appeared in 30 games, had 3 goals, 15 assists for a grand total of 18 points. But keep in mind, Casey did have an upper body injury at one point during the season. He was sidelined 6 to 8 weeks. So that kind of hindered him a little bit. But I think similar to Nemec, he made the most of his opportunity both in the NHL and AHL. I did say during the season that I saw more potential in Casey because right from the very start, Casey made an impact. His first career goal was scored in the Global Series while the Devils were playing the Sabres in Prague. That was impressive. That was probably one of the more exciting plays this season. You couldn't have scripted it any better. And that goal helped solidify the Devils sweeping the Sabres in Prague. Casey made that sort of impact right away, which I found rather impressive. Now, I'll talk more about his season and his future momentarily, but here's what he had to tell me and the rest of the media during exit interviews and how he would like to grow his game. Take a listen.
For me, I had a great time. I think, my goal was to obviously try to play some games in NHL this year, and that happened for me. So, I feel very blessed, and some great opportunity came my way. But, I think, still taking some time to reflect, and obviously didn't end the way we wanted it to, but overall, great year.
Yes, you wanted to spend some time in the NHL, which you got to do, but we always talk so much about the value of, consistent playing time, which, yes, you had your injury in the AHL, but how valuable was that for you to be down there and getting those bigger minutes that maybe you wouldn't have been able to up here?
Yeah, huge. I think, the time that I've spent there and was extremely valuable, and, played with a bunch of amazing guys, and, there's a great staff there. So, it was a really good, I guess you could call it, year down there.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously some of the time was split, but extremely valuable. Like you said, played, some good minutes and some, big games, but I think, still taking some more time to reflect, but it was a good year. And, with the injury and everything, like, that was obviously a setback, but, you learn and grow from everything. And I think overall, like, just, happy that it wasn't longer, and I didn't miss too much time. And happy to be healthy going into the summer.
The pace at which you play in the NHL, in the AHL, compared to a college season, how did that, what was that adaptation process like? And what did you maybe learn about how fast and furious things come at you, not on the ice, but just in terms of schedule here in the NHL?
Yeah, I think on the ice, like there's an adjustment, and guys are, in for the most part, bigger and stronger. Like it's not like there's plenty of that speed and strength that in college and stuff, but it's not all the time. Whereas here, it's every guy, every shift, every play is that level, and you need to be at that level all the time. So that's obviously tough to do, and definitely an adjustment. And as far as off the ice, like you and the beauty of college is you get into a pretty good schedule and routine, and you can kind of get not stuck is the wrong word, but coming to here, it's just a lot different. You got to be constantly ready to move and adapt, and a lot of things I had to learn, on the go. And but thankful to have really good teammates around me and great guys that are helping me through it constantly. But college, you can just really kind of exactly what every day is going to look like for you. So
Right.
it's definitely different.
Where do you feel you showed the biggest areas of growth in your game?
I think, I don't know, that's a tough one. I feel offensively, like on the ice, offensively, I thought I did good, and there's a lot of good things to take there. And I thought, like on the defensive side of the puck, like I think there maybe were some question marks from people, and I felt really good about my game. I felt things got a lot better as I got more time. So just try to keep growing in both those areas, but that was good.
What are some of the things you're going to work on in the off season to help take your game to the next level?
Honestly, just like getting back in the gym is huge. I need to have another big summer. Try to put on some more weight, but more just focusing on getting your body ready to handle another full season. And I didn't play a full season this year with the injury, and obviously, being scratched here a few times takes away some games. So I really want to get, a full season in, and to be able to do that, you need to have a big summer.
All right. When it comes to Casey, he has a lot to work out, but he has a strong foundation. He's a smallish defenseman from Florida. For any of you who didn't know this, during the season, I had an internship with the Florida Everblades, the ECHL affiliate of the St. Louis Blues. And Seamus Casey is actually really well known down here in Florida. So the Everblades play just outside of the Fort Myers area. That is where Casey is from. Hockey is such a small world. But getting back to Casey, he has tremendous skill and knows how to skate pucks out of trouble. He has the vision and poise needed to run a power play with confidence. However, his lack of size could limit his ceiling at the top level. He may need to be partnered with a big Sasquatch type of player, in the words of Jersey Joe, to bring out his skills and minimize his drawbacks. Talented, but undersized offensive defenseman. You know what? I've been seeing a lot of people on the Devil's Discourse have this debate about Casey, like, how do you develop him? Because he is undersized, and we're in a day and age where you have some big defensemen out there. How will he fare? Because I just said his arsenal is not really all that vast when it comes to defensive capabilities, which made it easy for Sheldon Keefe to bench him. He can't change his height. That's just the reality of it. I think some people have been saying like maybe you could put him as a forward, but I think we're a little too late in his career for him to like switch from being a defenseman to a forward because they're played so much differently. I remember watching Seamus Casey make his development camp debut, and he was always joining in on the rush. He had tremendous speed, tremendous hands, like I just mentioned, but unfortunately, he's a defenseman. He's not a forward. That's a debate that I'm sure people are going to continue to have. But if you were to ask me, I think we're just a little too late for him to switch from being a forward to a defenseman, but just some food for thought. It took Nemec a minute to readjust to the NHL, but Casey seemed to get it right away. I remember being in attendance for one of the first games of the year when the Devils took on Utah back in October. Casey had a big impact, but Sheldon Keefe said post-game that he doesn't anticipate for Casey to remain on the roster all that long, just because he still has a lot of stuff to work on if he wants to solidify his position with the team. Needless to say, both Casey and Nemec are good defensemen with a lot of potential, still some stuff to work out, but I see long-term success, but the Devils might be forced to make a difficult decision. Okay, when it comes to Nemec and Casey, both of them are still signed under their ELCs. Nemec is entering the final year of his entry-level contract. Casey still has 2 more years remaining on his, so you got some time to assess his future. But when you look at the players ahead of him, this is where things start to get a little complicated. So Dougie Hamilton, he's signed for the next 3 seasons. I don't anticipate him being dealt out of New Jersey. Brett Pesce is here long-term. Brendan Dillon has 2 years remaining on his deal. Kovacevic is here long-term. Jonas Siegenthaler is here for 3 more seasons. Luke Hughes is going to be here long-term. It's just a matter of when does he sign his extension. Come on, Tom Fitzgerald. People are waiting anxiously, but digressing a little bit. The point I'm just trying to make is that there are a lot of defensemen in front of both Casey and Nemec. So where do they slide in? Can both of them develop? Can both of them thrive here in New Jersey? And I can't reiterate this enough. I'm not saying that they're bad players. I'm not saying one is better than the other. Both of them have their strengths. Both of them have their weaknesses. Both of them, I think, have bright futures in the league. But with the players that are in front of them and the agenda that the Devils have, which is they don't want to just be a playoff team. They want to someday be a contender within the next few seasons. You really got to make a decision. Like, is it time to unload one of those defensemen? Like, let's just say the Devils decide to move Dougie Hamilton as a salary dump. Then, whether you like it or not, Seamus Casey or Shimo Nemec are going to have to slide into a much bigger role. But that's not going to happen. Most likely, the Devils will not trade Dougie Hamilton just to trade him away. Realistically, the Devils are going to stay intact with the defensemen that they do have, but a few of those defensemen are signed long-term, and they take priority over Casey and Nemec. Also factor in Ethan Edwards, teammate of Seamus Casey's back at the University of Michigan. He also signed his entry-level contract. He's another highly touted Devils prospect. So this is where, once again, things get a little tricky. What do you do with Edwards, Casey, and Nemec? How are all 3 of them going to develop? And when their ELCs expire, what will their contracts look like? And can you get the most out of them? That's just where I'm questioning things a little bit. So once again, I'm not saying I want to move on from Nemec. I'm not saying I want to move on from Casey. I'm not saying I want to move on from Edwards. I'm just saying there's a few players that take priority over them, and how will their development work? Look at the Stars, for example. They're looking to clear some cap space and move on from Jason Robertson. And in exchange, I think they're looking for a right-handed defenseman. Rumors were circulating that I think they were curious about Dougie Hamilton and his current stance with New Jersey. Not going to happen, most likely. But they could also have their eyes set on Seamus Casey or Shimo Nemec, because both of them are highly touted players on the Devils roster with bright futures. That's something that they could be intrigued about. In fact, I've talked about it in a recent episode. Maybe if the Devils want to get Jason Robertson, it could be possible that they're willing to sacrifice Shimo Nemec in order for that to happen. So my thing is, I like Nemec, I like Casey, I like Edwards, and if you would have told me during the regular season, who do I prefer, I would have said Casey in a heartbeat. But after the playoffs, I'm not so sure. I don't think you can just move on from Nemec that easily. But let me know your thoughts. What were your opinions on Nemec and Casey throughout the course of the regular season? Where do you think their games are going to go? Is there room for them to develop? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment down below if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on podcast streaming service, hit me up on my personal X-Page app at TreyMatt4 or the show's X-Page app at Locked On Devils. As for today's episode, that's all the time I have for you. Continue to stay safe. Have a wonderful day in New Jersey. Go Devils. I'll catch you guys in the next episode. Thanks for listening once again.